simply hi.
The Nance is raunchy.
Is this a dagger I see before me?
Racy.
Well, this is an interesting position you put me in.
And didn't we mention it's on PBS? Winner of 3 Tony Awards plus Drama League and Outer Critics Circle Awards for Best Actor, Nathan Lane. It's a surprising love story set in the grand old age of burlesque. Nathan Lane in The Nance.
Please welcome one of this generation's greatest actors who works effortlessly between stage, screen, and television, 2-time Tony Award winner, Nathan Lane. Good evening.
Good evening, nice to see you.
Your brilliant performance as Chauncey Miles is the perfect melding of artist and material. Would you all agree? Nathan, how did The Nance originally come about for you?
Douglas Carter Bean, who was a writer I knew, and we had almost done one other show together. He had asked me to do something, and I couldn't do it. And then he sent me the play by email. He said, I think this is something special. And I thought of you after I finished it. So I read it and thought, well, that's a really interesting piece. It's so theatrical and ambitious, and he's juggling a lot of interesting stories, the sort of gay life in the 30s and the social politics, the New York history and those politics, and I was sort of fascinated by the character and this sort of for lack of a better word, cabaret-like structure of the onstage life and the offstage life, and so I said, well, sure, I'm game. If you want to do this, where should we do it? And I suggested, this is I think this would be better served, but in an institutional, and I mean that in the nicest way. In an institutional theater, a Lincoln Center, a Roundabout, somewhere that it wasn't a big commercial production, and so we both had a relationship with the Lincoln Center, and he was about to meet with Andre Bishop to have lunch to discuss future projects, and so he brought this up, and that was sort of the beginning of it. We over a period, I think of about 3 years, we eventually, Jack O'Brien was enlisted into this project, and we had readings. We did a couple of workshops, and then we're just trying to figure out the scheduling of it. And then, and as the time went on, we would, after each workshop or reading, we would say how we felt, what the play needed, if this was clear, if the relationship between Ned and Chauncey, and that it need more development, was a scene missing. There was also some cutting of, there was a sketch, and I really wanted to do it. He had a burlesque sketch they did it was Uncle Tom's Cabin. and I was playing Simon Legree, but he was called Swishy Legree. But it meant that the actor playing Ephraim would have had to have been in blackface, and we did it when we did. Sometimes we did these readings for a lot of the Lincoln Center staff, and they would sit, and I guess some of the people were uncomfortable. With the nature of I don't know, the extreme effeminacy of the character, although it seems like that character has been with us for a very long time, but in one form or another. But it was always interesting to do the play, and if people didn't react to that kind of simply hi, and there was dead silence. It was uncomfortable, and then finally Andre said, "We can't possibly do that." Uncle Tom's Cabin. Everything. We did it. We did it in a reading, and everything came to a grinding halt. People were openly weeping, and even the notion of a man in blackface or me with a little whip hitting people, and so. Really, look, even you're shocked. Anyway, it went through, many manifestations. And then the last one, we were also kind of thinking about who would play Ned. And then we did the last one, and we thought there was a conjecture about how the play should end. Should it end? There's so much to tell you, but there was one. There was a thought of maybe ending on the Hortense monologue, and it's interesting when we finally went into rehearsal and it was all cast and we were going to do it on Broadway for Lincoln Center. We would do that. I remember doing that piece, that part of the play, and it just seemed like jokes. I mean, it's a very classic, very old character from burlesque. Mickey Rooney did it in Sugar Babies. He came out in drag, and he was called Hortense. He was an old whore who lived down by the river, and would just talk about her sad life and do a lot of double entendre jokes, and and it's funny, and it's sort of a classic character. And it was interesting. In rehearsal one day, we were doing sort of a run-through, and Doug, there were just all these jokes, but in the middle there was the rhyming names of her boyfriends. There was Fred, there was somebody else, and then Ned, and all it said in the script was, "This stops him for a minute." And so I would say to Jack, well, what should we do? How should we deal with this? I mean, is he just carrying on in a professional way? It takes him by surprise, and then he goes on. And then this one day we were having a run through, not in costume or anything, but we were going through it, and it was sort of a relentless play for me, and because you went from one thing to the other, and quite extreme, silly, broad burlesque sketches, and then something very heavy and serious, and then we got to this thing, and I said, Ned, and I just broke into tears. It was just, I don't know, it was maybe also the kind of the brutality of the scene beforehand where he just wants him out of his life because he just can't do it. And it just hit me. And and then we finished, and Jack came up to me and he said, well, I think that's really what it's about. Ultimately, and then he has to sort of carry on. And then it was interesting that what surprised me was in performance, I just thought people would see me in drag and laugh. But the people were so upset on his behalf, knowing that he was uncomfortable having to do drag, and yet he needs to perform, and there he is. And it was interesting because I would start it, and you want a shift in tone anyway. That number the ladies did, which was fantastic and kind of shocking in its way, and angry. And then him coming out leaning against the lamppost smoking, and I just thought they would laugh, and then it was an interesting transition in how they would start to slowly laugh at those hoary old jokes, and then be taken by surprise, and then it was really sort of an improvisation in performance. I broke down, and I saw the actor Jeff, who was playing the stage. He was the stage manager, and he didn't have any lines, but he would stand at the wings and watch me. This was so sweet, and why you love actors is he would stand in the wings and watch me, and when I would break down, I looked at him, and I would see him and he couldn't be seen by the audience, but he would be telling me to go on, keep going, keep doing, and that's why what led me to say, I was saying to him, I can't do this. I just, and he would say, go on, do the, and it was sort of, he was being supportive and also sort of angry because we're putting on a fucking show, and go finish the fucking thing, and it was sort of horrifying, and yet I loved that he was there. He was being there for me as an actor, and that's sort of how that all developed. And then as it went on, there were little bits when he reads the thing, the little poem he wrote, and there's what he says it all sort of starts to hit him because it's all applying to how he's treated Ned. And it was a fascinating thing to figure out, literally in front of audiences every night. So we thought maybe it should end there, maybe with a maybe slightly different, a little rewrite, and that may be how it should end. And then we talked about it and felt that you feel like you want to tie up the other stories and what happens to the other characters. But it was. Obviously, what else do you want to know? But it was such a great, a terrific, brilliant company of actors, and everyone, it was a wonderful piece to work on. We were Jack O'Brien and I and Doug. Doug is a great collaborator. He's so quick, and he can rewrite quickly, and he'll try things, and if something doesn't work, he's the first one to say, let's get rid of that. And I was just so proud of him because, people know him. He's one of the wittiest writers, along with Paul Rudnick, one of the wittiest writers I know for the theater. And here he was trying this. The play came about because he was. At the same time, he was preparing to go off to some retreat, a writer's retreat, to work on a new project or something, whatever was going to. He didn't really have an idea, but he was reading this book called Gay New York by George Chauncey, which covers gay life in New York from 1890 to 1940. And it's for anyone, but especially for gay people, and especially young gay people, should definitely read this book. It's unbelievable, the information. It's fascinating. And so he had been reading this book and also trying to put together a benefit for this group that he ran, the drama department. And they were just going to do, for fun, they were going to do old burlesque sketches. So he had been reading in this archival material he found. Every once in a while he saw a Nance enters, a couple of times that he was sort of like, he sort of got the idea of what it was, but I was sort of repelled and also curious. What is a Nance? He knew the term Nancy, the British term Nancy boy, but and then there was also a reference to it in the George Chauncey book that actually in the Astor Place Theater they had in the balcony what they referred to as a Nance element that was people considered unsavory, and so he started to put all of this together, and he went off to this retreat and sat down and wrote the first scene. And using the name, because of the writer, George Chauncey, he called him Chauncey. And that's sort of how the play started. Okay, now you talk.
No, I talk. You've answered all my questions. No. Jack O'Brien is one of the most brilliant directors. What is he like working as a director, and what makes him such a great director?
Well, Jack he's theatrical. He's full of joy and love. He loves the actors. He creates this wonderful atmosphere, this playground where you feel free to try anything and fail. And he's so eloquent, articulate. He just, he gives the greatest, most inspirational speeches before every rehearsal, let alone when you're in performance. And he has such a sense of, you should read his book, Jack Be Nimble. It's, the whole regional theater movement, which he was a huge part of, along with Ellis Rabb and Bill Ball. But it's really about his relationship with Ellis Rabb and his work in regional theaters and the classical repertory. It's a great read. It's really witty and it's like having dinner with Jack. But he has such a sense of the history of the theater. In fact, that's one of the great things about reading the book is his description. For example, he described seeing Rosemary Harris for the first time in, I don't know whether it was a Molière play or a restoration play, but he describes it, and it's almost like someone put on a video of Rosemary Harris and seeing her in her youth. playing this part and the extraordinary things she did with it, and with dealing with the language and whatever piece of business she had to do, and so he's just a great cheerleader, coach, and just such a smart man. And we had known each other for years and had almost worked together on another project that didn't work out. And so it felt like this was really the right piece for us to do together, and especially at Lincoln Center. And so he's just someone you want to have in your corner.
You know, right before you did the Nance, you had taken on the role of Hickey in Eugene O'Neill's The Iceman Cometh, and you said, yep. You had said that doing that was the best preparation for you with taking on the Nance. Why?
Well, it was sort of, it was just a life-changing experience. I reached a point in my life. I had finished doing the Addams Family, this musical, the Broadway. There's one person clapping. And it had been and the Addams Family was sort of was a disappointing experience. We had hopes and it didn't, as very often with shows or musicals in particular, it didn't quite come together the way we had hoped. Although it was a very talented group of collaborators, they didn't really collaborate very well. And it didn't really come together in the way we all had hoped. And yet the public, even though critically it was not well received, as Bette Midler likes to say, it was not well received in certain circles, like the Earth. The public still wanted to see it because they liked those characters and the name, the brand name of the Addams Family, and they liked the idea of me and B.B. Newworth in those parts, and we had a very lovely, talented company, and so no matter what they had said, people were coming to see it, and so we did it for a year. But afterwards, I felt, I was reaching a certain point in my life where I thought, I just need to change things. I need to shake things up. I could go on doing this kind of entertainment forever. People would be very happy if I did. Some people would rather I did. But I was just feeling I had more to offer as an actor, and that in some ways, Charles Isherwood wrote this a lovely piece about me at the time of the Addams Family that referred to me as I was the last of the great entertainers. And talked about my work as an actor, but and as flattering as it all was, I thought, I really am an actor. I mean, that's what I've been. I've always been an actor. I'm glad you think I'm funny, especially in a comedy. That's a very good thing to have happen in a comedy. But that you wouldn't laugh if I'm acting. This is I'm not. Anyway, I just felt I needed to sort of break free of whatever preconceived notions people had about me, and and certainly along the way, I've done the plays of Terrence McNally, the plays of John Robin Bates, Simon Gray. I've certainly done things that have more colors than just the comedy. But obviously, I became well known for the producers and for the Birdcage and things like that. People, and those, I'm very grateful for all of that kind of success. But for me, at this point in my life, it wasn't enough. I didn't feel I was challenging myself enough as an actor, and I needed to shake things up. And so I sort of thought, how can I change? Is it possible to even change people's perception of me as more than just an entertainer or a comedian? So I sort of set out to do what I could. It was great preparation for the Nance, because first of all, after Iceman, everything seems easy. When we did it at BAM, and I went back to It's Only a Play on Broadway, it was like, this is ridiculous. This is the silliest damn thing. But, yeah, does that answer your question?
That did answer my question. I think I have you for a little longer. You know, you talked about mapping out, because I'm sure working on Chauncey, you had to map Chauncey out the same way and then throw it all away and just do it. You know, I read where you said the Nance is the first real romance that I ever have done on stage, and that it was a challenge dealing with the intimacy and physicality of a guy on stage. Tell me why and how you overcame it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've had romance, you know, in the sense of it's, you know, in Guys and Dolls is obviously a romance with Nathan and Adelaide, but this was, you know, especially for someone of my age, it was different, and it was, and you know, and that was the thing about Johnny. He was so great about all of that, and you know, you're just very vulnerable. That's all. It's just being very vulnerable and intimate with someone who you don't really know, who you're just getting to know in a rehearsal situation, and it's always awkward if you have to. You know, we had to kiss, and you know, it was, but it was interesting. You know, it just was. Well, it's funny. I mean, I didn't have anything like that, like a movie scene where people are making love or any, you know. And they always talk about how, you know, it's uncomfortable to, you know, to have to do that in front of a crew, and it's a lot more technical than people really think, and you know, hopefully it all comes together. And I mean that in the nicest way, but. You know, in this, it was, you know, it was just, and it really had to do with Johnny Orsini just being, you know, it was very easy, and it was not, you know, I mean, we didn't have any heavy duty stuff to do, but it was, you know, it's interesting to be that intimate with someone, and he was always there that way, and never you know, it could be uncomfortable for someone, and he wasn't, and it was all very, you know. So it was really a tribute to him that.
Because there are so many beautiful moments when you watch the film or see it on stage, like when you pin him into the underwear, and you just touch him for a second, and you look up at him, and there's this beautiful, intimate moment of something you haven't experienced in a long time, probably, with someone, or that intimate. It's those little moments you see.
Well, how do you know? Mr. Ridge.
Mr. Ridge, okay.
How do you know?
But you notice those little moments of Chauncey.
Just last Thursday.
But you see all those little intimate moments of Chauncey. You're remembering maybe those moments as the character. And so those little moments of you like putting this relationship together. That's what I love about watching it on film.
Well, thank you. You know, that's the great thing about seeing it. You know, on film, there's this intimacy that, you know, I think in some ways it's even better on film. I mean, it's a theatrical experience, but there's an intimacy to it that I don't know whether you always got in the theater, because the camera is giving you that kind of focus, and you know, there's a lovely. Those quiet moments of isn't that the saddest thing when he says, "It's not what I should be having"? Isn't that that's the saddest line in the play? Yeah. You know, that's so tragic, but
those are the beautiful moments,
yeah.
Which you do see in the theater, but when you watch it on film, you're like, oh my gosh, they're so delicate when the camera goes in on those certain moments. That's what I noticed tonight. If you could sum up the best part of the experience of working on the Nance, Nathan, what was it for you?
Well, just the whole group, all of us, Katie and everybody, we would all, Andrea Burns, every Saturday night she would write it was just a great camaraderie with this particular cast. And every Saturday night, she would come into the automat. This is before the show started. You know, the curtain was down, and she would sing. She would write an original song to one of the melodies for the show, which about whatever was going on in the world or in the play, and then she sang this thing about that it was Saturday night on Broadway, and they don't know how good this is going to be, and she would sing, she would to get us all revved up for Saturday night on Broadway, and it was I'll always remember that, and just that kind of camaraderie and with these actors, which is what made it so special, and the fact that I think people I was very touched when people would come back and say, I think they thought it would be one thing. They thought it was just going to be, a show about old-time burlesque, and it was just going to be mainly funny. And then how moved people were and didn't know where this was going to take them, and how upset they would be. And how it was sort of very sweet that how people would say, they'd come back and they would say to me or to Doug, or, why couldn't they have worked it out? Couldn't they have... why couldn't that have worked out? And, yeah, it's that, just that they were so touched by it. And so that's, that it was a wonderful experience that way. But it was about that kind of, the group effort.
Yeah. We have a lot of actors in the house tonight. So my final question for you is, what is the best bit of advice that you've been given both personally and professionally that you live by? They're all waiting.
Well, it's so hard to say, to actors, when young actors ask you for that information, you think there is, everyone always says is, if there's anything else you'd be happy doing, try that. Because it's such a hard business, and yet, if you really want to do it, you're going to do it, and then we wish you all the best and all the luck in the world. But it's, I don't, look, I had no connections to anyone in the business, or I was just this kid in Jersey City who, would watch the Tony Awards as a kid and think, or be taken to a play and think, I think this is what I would like to do. I think I could do that. I don't know how, each person has to create their own path, and it's just about that cliche of following your heart, following your dream, because that's, people don't. I did a friend of mine, Lee Wilkoff, wrote this little movie with a friend called Lounge Act that I did with Gabriel Byrne and Franny Conroy and Boyd Gaines, and we played. We're older actors, and but it hasn't really happened. It didn't really take off for us the way we'd hoped. So it's about people of this age and they hang out in it doesn't really exist the way it used to. They hang out in the Equity Lounge. That's where and my particular character basically lives at the Equity Lounge. And he's so angry, and Ann Roth did the clothes, and I had a huge fat suit and a beard and like a Greek fisherman's hat and tinted aviator glasses and a fisherman's vest. You've seen this guy on the subway with a shopping bag and reading a soiled copy of some O'Neill play, I'm sure. And it's that. It's people whose dreams, are beaten, and yet, somehow they hang on because they can't let go. And I don't know. It's just, I don't have any great advice other than, be kind to people. Be a professional. That's what I would say. Be a professional. Show up on time. Do your homework. Come in with ideas and exuberance and give 150% and be kind. And it is about the group effort. It is about working together, even whether you have the biggest part or the smallest part. It's about creating this experience and sharing it with 8 times a week with people, and loving what you do. It was the old Jack Lemmon story. He always used to tell this story, which was his father was a baker. And he, when he had to tell him that he wanted to be an actor, he was nervous because he didn't think he would, that, especially in that time period, was not looked upon very highly to go into the acting profession. And he said to him, do you love it? Do you love it with all your heart and soul? And he said, yeah, Dad, I do. And he said, then I understand. He said, the day I don't find romance in a loaf of bread, I'll walk away.
Well, I have wanted to do this for the longest time. You and I go back quite some time.
We do.
We do, right?
You're such a nice man.
Well, I thank you for doing this. Will you come back again?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan Lane.